Because it's 2 years to the next election, this is one of the themes I want to... How realistically can people get an alternative view across? How can they challenge an establishment view? Where are the outlets? From within the island?
Obviously, we, other than reform, we haven't got political parties. The only hope will lie in like-minded people coming together.
I mean, you're a like-minded person on a good day.
Yes,
why did you never join with or help try to form a party?
Because I felt that there was an antipathy towards parties, although I do respect what Reform are trying to do, and I felt it was better to express myself through things like scrutiny. You know, we were working together as a group of people, we were building expertise in certain areas, and we could make, meaningful comments and incisive comments on issues. It doesn't mean we were successful, by the way, that's another
Even
issue.
Against the background of what is, I mean, it's not a party, but finance is such an establishment activity, isn't it? It's the establishment activity. So in itself, it works like a party, doesn't it? It's a political view, point of view. This is how Island Jersey is. It could have been privateering 2 centuries ago, it could have been anything, but that's the activity we do. So that's the establishment, that's official, we're a finance centre.
Yes.
So it can't be challenged. But it can be challenged whether Jersey's a farming centre. That's challengeable, isn't it?
Yes, indeed, and it can be challenged in regard to how on earth, in this context, you develop alternative industries.
But that's been talked about for as long as I can remember, about diversification. Never happens. Why doesn't it happen? Why is it?
Well, it doesn't happen, in my view, because obviously finance gives immense rewards to some of its employees, for example. It's made this place into a high-cost economy, and the only way agriculture and tourism survive is bringing in low-wage labour, for example. So it's very, very difficult to crack the economy if you can't work to the kind of high costs that finance works to.
Well, this is why they grab at the can-be-done film opportunity, make a lot of money for very little outlay, but it just shows how difficult it is, isn't it?
Yes.
The proposal is on the table yet again to reform the electoral system. What do you think of the latest plan?
Well, obviously it's partly a rerun of what went to the electorate. I don't think it will work, because we cannot, until we can face up to the issue of the role of the constables and the imbalance that they bring to the states because of the bias to the country, the fact that there's no equality of voting between the different constable constituencies. Until we can face up to that issue, I don't think it will work.
Why is it you think the view is, even people like, sorry I keep mentioning Reform, but that's the only political party we've got, they say, well, that matter is settled, that's been decided by the public.
Yes, there was a referendum.
The last, I ran the referendum, it was A and B, or it was, I forget, for yes or no referendum, which took place in the last election. Nobody wanted to run with the no one, so I volunteered to do it almost single-handed. And I got 9,000 people voted no. They didn't want the constables to have the automatic vote. Now that, just with one person, with virtually no money, totally outgunned by the establishment.
Yes, yes.
And that, to me, indicates that if one person can get 9,000 votes, a properly organised campaign would certainly challenge that view, wouldn't it?
Yes, yep. And there were campaigns, of course, in the earlier referendum.
Right.
For the important options, as you well recall. Yeah, I've got no problem with that.
So how does a thing get to be a settled matter? It's not a settled matter.
Well, we had hoped, obviously naively at the end of the day, we had hoped that a referendum would make it a settled matter, because there was a feeling that the States was incapable of reforming itself. The earlier reforms of '48, they became a settled matter, basically because the UK government played a central role. For example, the Home Secretary was chairman of the Reform Committee at the time.
If reform, the sort of reforms that I want, I don't know what reforms you actually want, but there are sort of substantial reforms that the system needs, and the challenge to finance, if that can't be affected from within, It'll have to come from outside then, won't it? It will have to come from outside.
Ultimately it will, but...
Do you think European Union discussion, that could be the mover for all this? It could challenge finance. It could challenge the way we elect governments here. It could look at these issues. It could look at anything. Anything could come out of this European Union discussion.
Yes, it could. Although, of course, the British government, if it was so minded, could move, as it moved with SAG. But so far, it clearly doesn't feel that the Jersey situation is at crisis point. Otherwise, it would have moved. Now, maybe it's applying pressure behind the scenes, but there's very little evidence of that.
But if the European Union is hostile, and bear in mind there's a lot of British finance centres, and there's all these little islands around the world, if the European Union makes a concerted effort to clamp down, as they keep hinting that they might do, the British government would almost certainly have to intervene, wouldn't they, in these places? Because some of them would be going bankrupt, wouldn't they?
Yes, if it reached that stage, Michael, but I don't think people feel, or the British government doesn't appear to feel that stage has been reached at the moment.
No, well, they want them to carry on. They're trying to hang on to their city of London. So the French don't get it, so they desperately want to hang on to these little places to keep pouring the money into London.
Back to reform, because I was very involved with it, and clearly it was one of the things that has failed spectacularly, and I really regret, because every time you try and approach it in a bitty kind of way, an incoherent way, you almost, other than the one-day election thing, which I think is good, but the way we've eaten away at the senators in the hope that the rest of the system could be reformed is an indication of that. It's very sad, actually, because I think had you got bigger constituencies and were the deputies playing a bigger role, people wouldn't have hung on as they do now, obviously, to the role of senator. And because we haven't reformed the rest, the pro-senator people, quite rightly now I have to say, they feel quite let down. But the big issue is you need a coherent proposal to put forward. You cannot do it in bits and pieces. Like if you... there was this referendum proposed by the then Deputy Green, interestingly, on the role of constables. But what it did, it cemented in place the permanent majority of the Council of Ministers. That's what it essentially does. And I get the feeling, walking the streets, that although people are very sentimentally attached to the constables, because of their role in the parishes, actually, not because of their role in the states, when it's explained to them, look, you do realise what it's doing to the system as a whole, that it is giving an inbuilt majority to the Council of Ministers. Is that what you want? And a lot of people don't. I think then the penny drops.
Well, you'll have to come to an end, but before we started talking, you described yourself as an old fogey, I think. But isn't that one of the things which is lacking in the alternative political view? People who, like yourself, who've got big experience, understand the system. You've written the standard book on the development of the political history of Jersey.
Yes.
And what year did that book start, by the way? What was the year of the start?
1771.
1771. So it started with the revolution.
Yeah, well, with the code, actually.
Yeah,
but
sorry,
anyway.
1769. And that was the revolution that led to the code. So that's where it starts. But, I mean, it's sort of, you need the equivalent of a revolution now, because they were complaining about so many things which are still issues now. But you've got that knowledge. You're an academic person in many ways. You've got that knowledge, and there are others out there, like you, who've got none. We don't hear your voice. You've been quiet, and other people. Don't you feel you've got something you can bring to it, the process?
Oh, yes, I'd be quite prepared to. Certainly, I think when you do retire, partly you don't wish to preempt what your successor is doing, and that's why I wouldn't get involved in that sense. But there has been a period of purdah. Yeah, we can bring things to the process. I just wish there were younger people around, and there were a whole range of varied people who were considering political careers, because there is no doubt a lot of people have closed their minds to political careers on this island.
Have you finished your activities at Highlands College now? Do you still?
Yes, no, I finished. Yeah.
Obviously, you were still there until recently. The young people you meet there, what are they interested in political activity?
They find Jersey politics quite hard to cope with, partly because it used to be something done across kitchen tables, because it was very much more a personality system. and we're in this sort of funny transitional period. A lot of them come, or their parents come from places where there were party politics, so they're much more used to thinking in those terms. But no...
I mean, I'm not making this as a suggestion. I have nothing to do with the Reform group. They're not very keen on me at the moment.
Yes.
But somebody like you with knowledge on constitutional matters, you've spoken at that conference many years ago of the European Union. Would you be the sort of person that could say, look, I can advise you on this, I could prepare a report for you, I could prepare that they can use as policy, because obviously a lot of these issues are too complex for people to understand, to analyse, to look at.
Yeah, no, I've got no problem, but as with so many things, the strength is doing it in a group, actually.
Yeah.
Because just as, like, I don't know, for example, the Minister of the Treasury cannot be an expert on everything financial, although often that's what the role tries and push them to do, and we all know it's not workable. Nobody can be an expert on anything, but you can be effective if you work in a group. Now that comes back to the role of the backbencher in Jersey politics.
Do you meet with any of the other old fogies that used to be in the States?
A few, but nothing, certainly not to plan a comeback or plan a revolution.
It's
or
just
anything.
to express some views. I feel this great vacuum here of knowledgeable comment on things.
Yes.
I mean, I'm on Facebook. Most of it is just spitefulness.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've noticed that, so I keep away from that. I read some of it, but I keep away.
Anything else you want to tell me? Any word of wisdom?
No. I think it's been very interesting. I just hope, because the electorate is obviously feeling very disillusioned at present.
Have you ever known it ever like this?
Not as bad. I mean, it strikes me, as we know, we live in a conservative island, a small C conservative island. I don't think even if we had a great left-right debate, I don't think there's ever going to be, in the foreseeable future, a great victory by the left on Jersey. They can keep nibbling away, they can keep fighting their corner in certain areas, and so forth. But I think the issue in the eyes of the public is the issue of competence. They just don't feel the people in charge ask the right questions. They feel ministers operate in isolation. Some of them have got egos inflated beyond their competence, I suppose. And that's what worries me about the council.
As you know, you're unusual because you were an academic. You have knowledge on this. Most guys, people in the States, have not a political background. It's a bit like Mr. Trump. They don't have a political background. They come into the States, don't they? And they don't have any, and all of a sudden they're a minister. So, it's not exactly a very good training ground, is it, for people to take? And they are big decisions some of them are making.
No. And the Jersey view has always been that if the States was run by business people, everything would sort itself out.
Because
and
it
that
is so
partly
financed.
relates to what happened after the war, when a group of business people were in power. But they were in power in much different circumstances. Money was rolling in, industries were taking off like finance and tourism. While I wouldn't for a moment denigrate their roles, there was money around, and people like, for example, John Lamarcon set up a new education system. This is a much different situation. And you're quite right, but politicians don't get trained around the world. You try and take people from relevant professions, and you hope after a period of jostling around, basically, that they can, become good politicians.
Okay, we better stop there.
God, that's a long way.
We hope to read your articles on the Constitution.
Okay, thank you.